with the war ongoing in Sudan. First, looking at the rebuilding process within the 2 years of this civil war, do you think full restoration can come back to not only Khartoum, but also other places in Sudan, should the war truly find a lasting end as we go on?
Well, the picture of Sudan, of Khartoum that I saw reminded me of Tokyo after the Second World War. Understand?
Okay.
It reminded me that of Tokyo because Tokyo was desolate.
Right.
But today, Tokyo is one of the most beautiful cities on earth. Understand?
Okay.
But it takes a lot of things. But our makeup and that of the Japanese are not the same thing.
What you say our makeup? You mean Africans?
Africans. So it's not the same thing. Japanese practice an economic system, or they have a business philosophy called Kaizen.
Okay.
Simply means continuous learning and improvement. Continuous learning and improvement.
Okay.
So, and this is what makes somebody succeed in any venture. So, Khartoum 1 is good news that they have started rebuilding, provided that the war has actually come to an end. Because most Africans don't know what that word Sudan means. You cannot talk about Africa without that word Sudan. Sudan is simply the land of the black people. Understand me?
Right.
So it is significant. So when we are talking about preserving Africa, Sudan should come to mind.
All right, then. I'm still going to stay with you, Doctor, before I go to Uganda. Looking at the fact that Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, as it stands, is experiencing a rebuilding process, do you think economically, going into the next phase of rebuilding, they can find their feet? Should the warring factors and, of course, the political will be there?
One, if the political will is there, it's going to take a very long process because $350 billion is a nice sum of money.
That's where I was going, Doctor.
So it's a very big. It's more than their 4 years budgets. So it's going to take a very long time. Understand?
Okay.
But the most important thing is that they have started, and my prayer that it should continue.
All right, then. Let's take this conversation to Uganda, where Barrister Edward is still joining us. Barrister, looking at these conversation about the rebuilding of Sudan and, of course, Khartoum, the capital, from your perspective as a lawyer, some quarters have said that the people who practically cause these kind of mayhem in Sudan should not be let off the hook. What's your position about getting to not only getting lasting solution to the unrest in Sudan, but bringing the perpetrators to book? What's your position?
Thank you, Edwin and Doctor in the studio, and my brother Hassan. Number one, it is actually good news to hear that the nation which we have actually, even here in East Africa, have always looked at struggling with civil wars, is starting thinking positively for its citizens, which is a good thing. Bringing the others who have actually brought all this into book would not be a problem, but also the authorities should start looking at certain, as even the Bible tells us, we should forgive ourselves in many ways. Yes, there is bringing somebody to answer questions why all this war has taken long like that. But the most important thing is there is something which is beginning positively to show the nation, to show the citizens that yes, this is what we want. And people talk, even though I've disagreed with you, those who caused all this mayhem, we can always see a way of handling this. But you bring the two things, you mix the two things, I tell you for sure, you will not be going a right direction. So I believe let's stand with one thing. Let Sudan continue with whatever they have started by rebuilding the nation first. Then now those other things will come as the next priorities.
All right, then. Well, still building on the nation, because I'm still going to stay with you, Barrister. Interestingly, Sudan has experienced quite a number of displacement of persons in the highest region of over 4 million persons seeking refuge in neighboring countries. And I dare say they also, some of them are in Uganda and some of other Eastern African countries. But let's look at the fact that these people being refugees in other countries wanting to return home with this level of rebuilding, of course, rebuilding planning in Sudan. Is there the possibility that the present government in Sudan that is still not even shelving its sword with, of course, the unrest going in that country would be able to handle the number of people who's been displaced wanting to return home?
Looking at the situation right now, I don't think this is when the time the citizens to start thinking of going back to resettle. Those who have actually now settled into other countries would actually fail to see that there is a stability and at least to start growing the economy of the country.
Right.
So that now they can now go back when they are sure that even as they go back to develop their own nation, at least there is a proper security structure. There is kind of a policy which is going to make these people get back home. You know, you cannot just wake up and say, let me go home.
Right.
Where you lived, you even don't know whether you are going to get peace is there. You know, those are things you need to look at. The government needs to get a strategy on how people will be getting back to Sudan. So I believe it is not yet time for them to start thinking of that.
All right, then let's take this conversation to Liberia, where we also have a media personnel joining us this afternoon. Mr. Hansen, interestingly, you're part of this conversation, and of course, even a young person who's been writing about, you know, conflicts like this in some other parts of Africa. Looking at the development of rebuilding Sudan, there are some questions about schools being used as shelter presently. Does this mean that schools that are being used as shelter will be maybe taken back to be used as schools? And then what do you think can be done within this rebuilding process? Plus the fact that over $350 million, according to the UN, is what is needed for the rebuilding of Sudan. What's your position with all of this, Mr. Hansen?
So very important that we have such a conversation that reflect the livelihood of the people of Sudan. And with 4 million persons have fled the country, displaced with over 7 countries bordering Sudan as a nation, with Egypt, with Chad, Central African Republic. Building it takes time, and it takes a whole long period, because that's where the challenges is. Because of this money, how would they get the money? So the country is dependent on international donors to fund this money. In essence, the governments must come with strategies to repatriate its citizens back to this country. However, some have settled already in this country. Some have good work, they have family, they're not willing to come back. Let's talk about the schools that is occupied by as displaced camp. The government needs to start building structure that will accommodate people, because people need to go to school.
Right.
It have been almost a year as children even haven't seen school. In an adult like myself, I've been into university. So this building will be taken, but then where are they going? So we don't talk about infrastructure development, we don't talk about education, we don't talk about livelihood process, which is very important. I think it's a way for integration that will help the people to know that they are going back to a safe country next year.
All right, then. Interestingly, I like the part that you've also brought about, the fact that we need to start getting it right And interestingly, this is truly what we should do, even as Africans, to start being responsible for ourselves. Well, let me take it back to the studio. Doctor, interestingly, there's a conversation which is I really have been longing to have you have a voice in it. We're talking about the part of treason charges on the former president of DR Congo. I'm talking about Joseph Kabila, where civil party are demanding $46 billion in Kabila's treason trial. First off, does Joseph Kabila, being an ex-president, have that kind of money? Should he be convicted? And that's on one part. Secondly, he's been tried in absentia. What's the implication of that? I'm going to take it to the barrister to let us know the legal implications. But let me also hear your position with this conversation about demanding for $46 billion.
But I want to just talk a bit about the Sudan issue.
Yes.
I feel that Sudan has a lot to learn from Liberia. Because how Khartoum was how Monrovia was.
Right.
During the days of Samuel Doe and Chasteno. Understand?
Yeah.
During the days of Samuel Doe, I was able to interview Jeremy Johnson in Nigeria here when he ran from Liberia to Nigeria. That
right.
was so. I interviewed him on 2 occasions, and from him I got that the picture of how all the country was at that point in time. So Sudan need to learn from Liberia how they were able to recover,
right.
because a lot of them that ran to Nigeria then has all gone back.
I was really going to go back to that because you brought me to that. I was going to ask, should Sudan go straight to maybe the UN or the EU to seek for funds in rebuilding Khartoum or even some parts of the Sudan?
Sure. They can also enter into agreement with some bigger companies, industries, and so on and so forth. Understand? That's on building infrastructure. Right. Because once there's a wall, apart from people, the next thing is infrastructure.
All right then.
Understand me?
Okay.
So these things need to be attended to, and they don't have the resources to do it as we speak.
All right, let's get to the Kabila situation.
So
really.
For Kabila, I don't know where he will keep $46 billion.
Dollars.
If he had that, he will be one of the richest men in the world. That's that. So I don't know, is that as a for what? Well,
it is in reparation, and of course they accuse him of fueling years of violence in the DRC.
Assuming he had that money and he hands over to them, his sins are forgiven or what?
Well, I mean, it's another conversation that we need to get into. But the question now would be, as it stands, Joseph Kabila have been, of course, accused of sponsoring the M23 rebels. That is allegedly, yes. He's been accused of it, allegedly. But as it stands, do you think the likes of Joseph Kabila, who is being tried in absentia, would be found guilty? You would recall that he was stripped of the immunity position that he had in the country, even as an ex-president.
Well, one thing, immunity is why somebody is in the office. And the purpose of immunity is to avoid the distractions. Imagine the president of a country be taken to court instead of leaving the business of running the government to be going from one court to the other. So that's the importance of immunity. Okay. But it expires once the person leaves office. Oh, understand me? Okay. Sure. Even in America, immunity expires once you leave office. Then for trying somebody in absentia, you cannot shave somebody's hair in his absence.
Right.
Understand? So if I'm being tried in my absence, likely I will find guilty. Okay. Because there will be no adequate representation. Understand? I will be found guilty because there will be no adequate representation. Okay. Understand? They will not be hearing from my lawyers or from me. So it's just a state opinion will form the verdict.
All right, then. Let's take this conversation to a lawyer. Of course, I'm talking about Barrister Edward. Interestingly, Barrister, Kabila is facing charges of murder, rape, torture, and of course linked allegedly to the backing of Rwanda's supported M23 rebels, who of course, you would recall, controls the city of Goma and Bukavu, not Kivu as well. But Kabila has been on exile for a while, and then he returned back and returned to one of the cities that is being held by the M23 rebels. From your position, as a lawyer, he's been tried in absentia. What's the implication of that kind of trial? Plus, should he be found guilty, what do you think that would have as an implication to the situation of the unrest in the DRC?
Thank you, Edwin. You know, most of these things, I would tell you, trying a politician is always a very complicated matter in court.
Okay.
Because any cases which are related politically to politicians tend to twist on the other way around. Because we have seen most countries try civilians. They are not tried like the way civilians are tried, because they have their own immunity in a different way. This is a retired president we are talking about.
Right.
And even before you start actually evidence which will actually implicate the former president, it's going to take a bit of time for them to prove that kind of. So in that case, it will get that Kabila will not be a person who is seated. Because if he's really supporting the rebels, is on the side of rebels, you get that Congo is also in discussion.
Right.
The current government itself in a dilemma to see that the nation gets peace.
Okay.
So I believe in this case, the case of Kabila may not carry much waters. It will reach somewhere where these people will find a solution, and this kind of cases may just tend to stop somewhere. So I don't believe this will bring it. There is no implication. I don't see anything until probably the case is decided in court. But up to that level, I don't see anything. It is political for now.
Okay, now I'm still going to stay with you, because I understand as well that the Army's Attorney General is set to present a closing argument on this case today, being Friday. Now, if there is a closing argument of a particular case of a former president in absentia, isn't that something quite worrisome? Plus, I would want you to also speak to the fact that Mr. Kabila also has returned to the country. He did say that he was going to have a world press conference some times back, but the government in power did not allow him. But let's talk about the fact that he also is in one of the cities being held strong by the M23 rebels. What do you think is the implication of that? Plus, of course, the legal part of it that I said, there is a closing argument in court later today.
That closing argument, the AG is bringing to probably presenting himself. That I will not comment so much, because I have nothing in my hands which probably can enable me give you the facts. But what I know, Kabila being who has returned back home to a city, one of the cities which is actually occupied by the rebels, I don't think Kabila has a control on that. If he's a safe mal where he is, then he has a right to stay where he is. But if he's there within the country, he's
right.
there to defend himself. I don't think it is right for you to defend yourself when you're a foreigner somewhere. I think that alone can prove to you, probably Kabila knows there is no case which is actually being placed against him. The case which is there is political for now, until we see that the evidence which has been placed in a court is enough to implicate Kabila.
All right then, let's take this conversation to Liberia, shall we? Interestingly, Mr. Hansen, we're talking about a former president who did say when he was going to return to the country that he's coming to help the sitting government wade off and, of course, have a conversation with the M23 rebels to help them quell the unrest in the DRC. Some quarters have said that the sitting government is not even trying to listen to Mr. Kabila, who again was a former president. Do you think, and share the thoughts of these quarters that thinks that the sitting president, I beg your pardon, the sitting government is not clearly concerned about ending the unrest in the country rather than chase a former president?
Oh, thank you. So, being a communication person, I'm a paralegal, I study criminal justice. And what I want to say is, I want to agree with the barrister that these cases can be highly political. And we must understand that DRC is a state party to the Rome Statute, which has invited the International Criminal Court, ICC, so such crime under its jurisprudence since July 1st, 2002. However, Joseph Kabila, as the former leader, could be held accountable for war crimes against humanity, which is an allegation that is committed by the M23 rebel with his support as a claim. But these could all charges that we say include murder, rape, tortures, and other human acts which violate international statutes and laws around the world. But again, the government must have substantial evidence to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he was aiding and abetting the M23. You could not say that because he is settled to where the rebel capture, meaning he's part of it. He is the president, and he chooses wherever he wants to live, and that also violates the protocol of free movement. So we also have to look at this case very critically because there will be a lot of defense. Mind you, he's an ex-president of the state.
Right.
So there is a lot of things that will be both for. I cannot say what would be the closing argument, but the defense must have solid and substantial evidence to prove beyond the former president.
All right, then. Let me take it back to the studio. Doctor, interestingly, we're looking at a court case of a former president in absentia, but then there was a particular case still talking about the DRC. A military court has acquitted Francois Bear, once the powerful security advisor to sitting president Felix Tshisekedi, bringing an end to a high-profile case that has gripped the country's political and security circle. I beg your pardon, barrister in Uganda did say the case of Joseph Kabila is politically motivated, and it's possibly going to take that soon. But looking at this particular one, Doctor, isn't this more like what is clearly predictable by almost everybody, that when you are in the good books of the government of the day,
or your sins are forgiven?
Your sins are forgiven. Is that the situation here?
Well, that is it. Understand? So that is it, because I don't think if much investigation went on, understand? It just let us give him a clean bill of health and return him to public service. Unfortunately,
Doctor, this case is a 3-year going case that just, of course, a closed-door trial with the judge saying that there is weak evidence on the part of the prosecutors who are prosecuting this person.
You know that a lot of the time why cases take a long time is just maybe for those affected. You know, they say that time heals wounds. Understand? Maybe if it's a murder case, as the minister are taking it,
right,
the anger is residing.
Okay.
Understand? Do you understand? So keeping it that's in a cover for 2-3 years, a lot of people must have forgotten a lot of things. People must have moved on. So you can easily bring that person out. By then, anger wasn't as much as when it
was in the past 3 years.
When all the offense was committed.
All right. Well, while I round up this conversation, maybe in one sentence, Somali's former presidents are uniting, 3 former presidents are uniting against the government of the day, particularly on the misuse of government properties and land acquisition, according to some reports that we've gotten. What is your position with these kind of conversations? 3 former presidents coming together.
Assuming that the former president did not commit the same offense, it's a good one. Assuming they did not do that in their own tenure. It's a good one.
Oh, wow.
So it's a strong message. Former sorry president coming together to issue a statement. It's a weighty statement, provided that they not do the same thing in one way or the other during their own tenure.
Interesting. Well, some people would say selective kind of judgment is what you get from some of these politicians. But let me take it to Liberia before we go to Uganda. Mr. Hansen, as it stands, 3 former presidents are clearly standing against the sitting government on something they call misuse by government, and of course, they are what do I call it now? Misuse of land properties and all of that in Somalia. What's your position with this quickly because of our time?
If the process didn't go through due process through the state institutions that are responsible for the sales of land or administrations of land, the process which is required may be illegal. So there are all reasonable evidence to prove that if the government is soliciting from illegal, therefore there should be the matter of court issues.
Okay.
And whatever ruling come in the wisdom of the judge, there are sufficient evidence to prove that. So I think there are procedure, and once the procedure not followed, then there is a breach of the law right there.
Okay, well, let's take this conversation quickly to Uganda. Barrister, interestingly, these former presidents, I'm talking about Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, they're accusing him of unlawfully seizing and, of course, selling public land. The unprecedented statement really is coming from the former 3 presidents. From your position, also talking about the case in DRC that has been ongoing for 3 years, and of course, the judges are saying, as it stands, there is no strong evidence to hold this case further. Of course, declaring that the former security advisor be let free. Merging these two together, what do you think should be the way forward when it comes to governance and accountability in Africa and, of course, African states?
You know, for the 3 presidents to come together and accuse their fellow politician, that must be having a reason politically. Maybe they have their own assessment on their way. But what I know is public property, there is always a policy in every government on how to manage it. So where the president has followed the constitution, I don't think whether there is a problem. And if there is a problem that the president has encroached personally, he will be actually, the law will be taken against him. That is when that time comes.
Sorry to cut you, Barrister. I was quickly going to ask you, do you think that former presidents who's been in power do not know the law for them to have come out to say, look, this man has done wrong, encroached on other people's land, and then there are other bodies in the country who is supposed to take charge of this kind of a situation? Why do you think they are not talking? Are we having weak institutions like we consistently keep hearing across Africa?
You know, we cannot make conclusions. Doesn't matter whether they were in power by that time.
Okay.
The only authorities in a nation, they are officers which are authorized to handle such cases, which would have actually come out and publicly and say this is happening. But until that, if the president himself has committed a crime, he will be actually also prosecuted. So it's not to say that you accused the president, the current president at this point, because you yourself, if that you had not done the same, just as the doctor in the studio said, then there must be a law which is supposed to be recognized by that nation. Yes.
All right then. Well, Doctor, I saw you itching, but I wanted you to have a maybe 30 seconds conversation about the flooding in Niger that has killed 47 persons. Is this government not being ready for such climate change, or is this something natural that we should just feel and take?
You know, they say that it is 10 times cheaper to prevent than to cure.
Okay.
But in Africa, government deliberately allow things to happen so that they will make money. Does that mean in Africa, leaders deliberately allow things to happen so that they will make money. And instance, let me come down to Nigeria. The one that happened in Ebonyi State about 3 weeks ago.
Right.
That's Federal Minister of Environment released states that will be affected. Ebonyi State and Africa in particular was one of those states. No preventive measures was taken. Now they are now on a rescue mission, calling for donors that to come. Understand me? And 8 people dead. More than 800 farm lands were washed away. So they don't want to prevent.
All right, then.
Which is very, very bad.
Quite unfortunately, this is where we have to draw anchor on the conversation. I want to say a big thank you to every single of our analysts this beautiful afternoon. Well, right here in the studio, we had Dr. Peter Anosike. Dr. Peter is Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst and, of course, an economist right here in Nigeria and a major writer as well. Doctor, thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Also joined us virtually all the way from Uganda is Barrister Edward Okwaro Amatakinya. Barrister is a lawyer, business associate, and also a human rights activist. Barrister, a very, very big thank you to you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, then also all the way from Liberia, we had Mr. Hansen G. Blayan. Mr. Hansen is a media and communication professional. Once again, thank you so very much, Mr. Hansen, for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
All right, then the rest of the African news will continue shortly just after.